Jazz Club.
Greetings, everyone. Hello. Hi. It is Monday, July 6th. I hope you all had a great weekend. I don't even know what to say at this point. I'm pretty stoked about tonight. Tonight we have the final chapter of the content that I wrote for the book. The Cliff chapter. Tonight we find out so many things about how Cliff meets his end. Before we get into that, I just want to say thank you all for participating in this series, this experience, this nuts, balls, crazy idea that we could have some theater, some film, some storytelling, some community, some healing during this pandemic while sitting on Zoom or StreamYard or Facebook Live or YouTube or wherever you're watching, Twitter. And we're just thankful that people are watching in so many different places in so many different ways. We've gotten notes and comments from all throughout the U.S. and beyond. We've got viewers who are watching from Australia. We've got one of our participants tonight participating from London. So this has become such a phenomenal experience for me and hopefully for you all as well. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of this. I want to say thank you to my wife, Michelle, who has allowed me to kind of commandeer whatever space I needed, whether it was the living room at the previous house in front of the fireplace and now in our new home as we're still unpacking and we're still figuring out where everything's supposed to go. I just want to say thank you to her because she's just allowed me the space to kind of take Mondays and Thursdays to spend my evening with you. And, you know, wear your mask. The numbers are still climbing. You know, folks are still acting as if the pandemic is just a rumor. And that wearing a mask is a suggestion. But we are still seeing people getting sick. And we are seeing this virus kind of mutate. Also, if you've been watching the news, there are versions of this thing out there now and other elements that could possibly take us out. It's like 2020 is just like, you know what, y'all? Y'all been doing it y'all way for so long. My turn. And we are just having to hang on and go for the ride. So just be careful out there and be well. Be well. So I do have some exciting news to share. I will share it at the end today. The Mach 3 Center, which is a part of the Whitlow R. Green College of Education at Prairie View A&M University, will be presenting a live town hall talk with the Reverend Al Sharpton July 16th. And I will be posting the flyer for that event at the end of the episode. In fact, today, our guy who plays Cliff, Daryl Johnson, I'll let him tell you about it. And as he's talking about it, I'll share the flyer and have Daryl tell you about this event. It's going to be phenomenal. Daryl is a part of the team putting it together. And as I said before, I told y'all that the guy playing Cliff for us is an A+ guy. And the work that he and his team at Prairie View is doing together to bring this presentation, it's phenomenal and yet not surprising. And so we'll talk about that in a little bit. In the meantime, in between time, let's read Cliff. Let's read the final chapter of this book. Chapter 12, Cliff. The house is quiet. Tonight, Cliff and Clair plan to enjoy the quiet together. Wearing his gray and maroon Temple University t-shirt and jeans, Cliff comes downstairs to the living room and turns on the television. He is waiting for Claire to return home with the blue crabs for their late summer seafood feast for two. And while he waits, the news reporter reports.
Good evening. I'm Fatima Lewis for Channel 4 New York, and here's tonight's top stories. Beloved professor of political science, Alexander Scott, has passed away. Former CIA agent and Hollywood spy films advisor Scott served as a consultant on the I Spy film with Eddie Murphy and...
No bad news today. Let's try another channel.
Yes. Drea Thomas here, reporting from North Philadelphia. Today, thousands of mourners light candles and leave signs and cards of condolences for the 16-year-old African-American male shot by Philadelphia police in a mistaken identity case. William Glover Jr., better known as Little Bill in the North Philly community, was gunned down and is the latest in a string of unarmed Black youth killed by police. The hashtag Little Bill has quickly gone viral and is trending.
No bad news today. I think I'm gonna check for some sports or something.
Hi, I'm Rona Ills, and in this hour we're going to investigate the school shooting that rocked our community this week. A local school set in an old utility company building is closing its doors today. The electric company charter school is finally folding after years of alternative and arts education for children of all ethnicities and backgrounds. Led by Dr. Albert Jackson, the electric company has not been able to bounce back after the school suffered the worst gun tragedy in Philadelphia history last year. Gunman Leonard Six, as he called himself in his manifesto, entered the electric company school with a semi-automatic weapon and killed Dr. Albert Jackson and 6 other faculty members. On the scene, Wilson A. Riley has the story.
Yes, thank you, Rona. Once called Fat Albert in the North Philadelphia community he called home, Dr. Jackson and his close friends opened the electric company charter school to foster a current of learning, jolting excitement, and stimulating energy for personal care and education by having the people of the neighborhood teach in their own school. The school housed 2 academies, Darndest Thing Grade School for students pre-K to the 7th grade, and a Different World High School for 8th through 12th graders.
Wilson, it's my understanding the teachers who perished in the attack were Dr. Owen Mushmouth Johnson, Donald Smart, William Cosby, Russell Cosby, Harold Smith, Rudolph Rudy Davis, and Bucky Hanks. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, Ms. Ilks. No students were harmed as school had not opened for the fall term, but it seems the school will remain closed and the children will be placed in the city's public school.
Fatima Lewis reporting from LaGuardia Airport. Former airline agent and Queens resident Hilton Lucas died from his injuries as his car was struck by a Cosby Enterprise freight train. No word if...
What is happening in this world? How can I escape the bad news? No bad news today. Maybe I should just turn the television off. That's it. I'll turn it off and live my day off in happiness.
Rape allegations. 5 more women come forward and have accused Bill Cosby of...
Stop. Enough. I simply cannot take another word of bad news. I certainly cannot listen to yet another account of that lousy Cosby fellow assaulting all of those women. If I thought someone had sullied any of my daughters in such a way, I would kill him. I know I took that Hippocratic oath and whatnot, but I would kill him dead. 5 more women. What's he up to now? 30? 40?
In other news today, Cliff gets up from the couch. As he rises, He feels a sharp pain in his chest.
The pain passes, as he's had many of these things before. 30, 40 maybe. He takes another step towards the kitchen door when another sharp pain shoots through his chest.
Yes, Rona. Cliff grabs and clenches his chest as he is having another attack. But this one feels deeper and more painful than the other. He turns back toward the desk near the door, hoping to make his way to the telephone and call an ambulance. As Cliff stumbles his way to the staircase, he loses his grip on the banister and falls hard to the floor.
Oh God, no. Not today. How are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Just give me one more day to say goodbye to everyone. To my children, my wife, but no, not today. Do not let the last thing I see be the news of that monster. Just let me see my wife's face and hear her voice. Let me tell my son how good of a man he is and that I am so proud of him. Let me look upon my daughters and thank them for making me a better man every day. Please, let me hold the hands of my grandchildren.
Cliff.
Let me.
Cliff.
Let me.
Cliff. It's okay. Just stop.
How are you doing this? Who are you?
I'm Drea Thomas, evening anchor for Channel 4 News, New York.
Yeah, but how are you talking to me?
Well, Cliff, you are the news.
Who, me?
Yes. And we're here to deliver you.
Me.
Yes, sir. You.
And you are?
I'm Fatima Lewis.
Wilson A. Riley. But you can call me by my initials. Everyone does.
W-A-R. You are.
At your service.
Well then, you're not really Fatima Lewis then, are you?
Most know me as Famine.
Rona Ills.
Ills? Pestilence?
Yes, good doctor.
And you? You, then, or death?
I am.
No.
Tonight, beloved Brooklyn doctor Heathcliff Huxtable suffered massive heart attack in the living room of his home at 10 Stigwood.
The violent attack left the father of 5 struggling for his life, as he calls for his wife.
Clair.
Cliff hears the back door open in the kitchen. Clair is home from the store. In the same breath Cliff uses to call for his wife, another lightning hot pain pierces his heart.
Please, God, no.
Cliff hears his wife call for him, but he has not the energy to reach back to her with his voice. As the room grows darker and fuzzier, he sees a young woman walking towards
Me. She is wearing a green prom dress. She's calling my name. This beautiful shape in green is running towards me. I'm only able to move my eyes, and yet I see a lake and a green hill with this beautiful shape of flowing fabric running over. Is it Clair? The flowing form is calling my name. Bucky. Eunice? Suddenly, my body is turned over, and Clair is 17 and wearing a peach sweater, and she's sitting next to me as I lie on my back. She is looking into my face, smiling.
Oh, do you have to go back to the Navy, Cliff? Well, can't you just stay?
Clair, don't let him keep me this time. Let me come home. I'm tired. I don't want to stay there. Don't let him keep me, Clair. Promise me. I want to come home.
Oh, of course, I promise.
I look over at the flowing form, continue to walk in my direction. It is Eunice.
I'm here, Bucky.
Niecy? I haven't seen you in 50 years, and here you are, sitting in my bedroom. Oh, wait. There is no way Claire would have allowed this to happen. Who let you into our home and in our bedroom? I try to sit up in my bed, but my body aches in all the places possible. I can feel my life slipping away. After all of the attacks, my body, my heart, my mind have already taken. I'm ready to let this life go.
Call Claire.
Call Claire.
Eunice slowly nods in agreement and leaves Cliff's side to get Claire. Claire enters the room.
Yes, Cliff?
It's time.
Oh, sweetie, are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Bucky, I'm gonna go.
Eunice steps back to Cliff's opposite side. She holds his hand.
I wish you a loving departure and all my gratitude and love, Bucky.
Eunice releases Cliff's hand and leaves the room, closing the door behind her. Claire pulls up a chair next to her husband.
Wondrous love.
You'd like me to sing Wondrous Love?
Yes. But before you do, I want you to know, for the last 50 years of my life, for the best 50 years of my life, you've been the breath of my life. I've lived my whole life loving you, and I thank you, Claire Hanks Huxtable, for loving me. I thank you for our children. I thank you for dancing with me and singing to me in the Spanish.
Oh, with all my love, my darling Cliff.
Claire softly kisses Cliff on the lips. Cliff closes his eyes and allows the tears to roll off the sides of his face. Cliff, you are ready.
Now, Claire, I'm ready. Wondrous love.
In the darkness behind Cliff's eyes, he can hear his wife singing his favorite hymn. As he drifts away, the song begins to fade and is replaced with the soundtrack of his life. The sound of his children, voices, they're talking and singing and laughing, playing. The sound of babies' first wails. The sound of his parents bidding him welcome. And they're all underscored with the loving serenade of the sweetest soul he has ever known, his wife, Claire. In the darkness behind Cliff's eyes, he settles into a deep sleep and then fades away from his life. So at this time, we're going to move into our panel discussion, The Tethered, Bill versus Cliff. And with this title, it is a play on the recent film Us, created by Jordan Peele. Like, my brain locked up. But looking at dualities, looking at two versions of the same self, and addressing that where Cliff and Bill are concerned. Our panelists tonight includes Leslie M. Scott Jones. She's a friend from Charlottesville, Virginia, and she is a writer, a director, an actor from Virginia. The world premiere of her first play, Desire Moments, was part of the 2014 Capitol Fringe Festival. Bookends, her first full-length novel hits the shelves Valentine's Day weekend 2016. So that was the thing we celebrated a couple years back. You can still get that book on all the major outlets such as Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and such. Leslie is artistic director of the Charlottesville Players Guild at the Jefferson African American Heritage Center. And she is the co-founder of Eugene Martin LLC, an artist development firm in Charlottesville. And she's the mother of 2 children and the Mimi of 2 grandsons. Awesome. I'm so happy to have her back on tonight. We also have Dr. Tina Opie joining us this evening. This is a friend from my undergraduate days at James Madison University. She's such a phenomenal woman, and I'm so happy to have her on tonight. She's the founder of Opie Consulting Group, LLC. Dr. Opie brings more than 20 years of experience in strategic management and organizational behavior, an award-winning researcher, consultant, and associate professor of management at Babson College. Dr. Opie advises large firms in the financial services, entertainment, media, beauty, educational, and healthcare industries. Well, let me tell you something. This is a bad sister, and you're going to hear from her tonight. Her consulting work has helped organizations such as American Express, Hulu, and the NFL. Dr. Opie's work has appeared in such outlets such as O Magazine, The Washington Post, The Boston Globe, Harvard's Business Review, and she is a regular commentator on Harvard Business Review's Women at Work podcast and Greater Boston's NPR affiliate television, WGBH. I'm so proud of her. I mean, and that was just a smidget, like a small smattering of her bio. I could go on for days reading about the Dr. Tina Opie. We also have returning Dr. Aviva Dove-Viebahn, another friend from Charlottesville, Virginia, a homegirl from the Ville. She is an associate professor of film and media studies at Arizona State University. She's a contributing editor, scholar, the writing program for Ms. Magazine, and a screenwriter. Her academic work explores the representation of gender and race in popular culture, especially in television. And so we're happy to have her back on tonight. And we also have Verta Maloney. This is her bio. I am Verta, and I am all love with appropriate doses of rage. I run my own business, helping individuals and organizations share their racial autobiographies and stories in an act on and onto racism in this lifetime. It is my hope that in every encounter, Black, Indigenous, and folks of color will leave seen, heard, healed, and loved. I am Chief Community Officer and co-founder of the Gamers, because all kinds of women in gaming are dope. I am a founding team member at Civics Unplugged because I know #the kids will lead. I am a national leadership facilitator for New York City Leadership Academy, where I do some more dope shit focused on anti-racism and equality. This is also another sister from James Madison University and another friend from my undergrad days. And just as you can see, a phenomenal woman. And I love her and all of our panelists that are on tonight. Whoo! That was a mouthful. Did I miss anyone? Did I leave anyone out? Look at all these people on this daggone thing. All their faces. Darnell is in the car. Just driving. Are you? No, look, he done made a left turn. Okay, so thank you all for being here tonight. I know that there are quite a few of us on. Thankfully, StreamYard has made things a little bit easier for Laura by allowing more people to be on the screen at one time. So prior to tonight, actually, we could only have 6 people on the screen. Now we can have up to 10 people. So we're going to have all y'all's faces up, and we're going to talk about the duality of Cliff and Bill. But before we get to that, how are y'all doing? Let's go around the table and check in with everyone and see how you're faring during this pandemic. I have 2 Leslies on here. So I'm going to say Leslie Ebony and Leslie. So Leslie, Charlottesville Leslie, tell us how you're doing today.
It's actually been a pretty good day. There were a few days over the weekend where I actually made a conscious decision to do nothing.
Yeah.
which I think is the best gift I can give myself at this point. To just, I'm not looking at my computer. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm going to sit here and watch some stuff on my Fire Stick and just disengage with the world for a few hours.
Man,
and
that sounds like a great day.
That helped a lot.
Yeah.
Helped a
Yeah,
lot.
I can imagine. Yeah, yeah. Tell us how your show is going. Now, you have launched a series as well, and you have some amazing people a part of that. Before we go to the next person, tell us quickly about that, and we'll circle back around for more details a bit later.
Sure. It's a fictional series podcast about 5 Black professors at a predominantly white institution. And it centers around their lives in navigating a space that was not meant for them, that they were invited into to help change.
Mm-hmm.
And as one of my story consultants brilliantly said to me, they want our diversity, but they don't want our difference.
Mm.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
All that. Say the whole thing.
And I have amazing people working with me because we decided to do this when everything was shut down.
Sure.
I was able to call on actors that I had met that are all over the country. So, you know, I got the amazing Doug Spearman, who you all will probably know from Noah's Ark as Chance. He's voicing a character. A filmmaker friend of mine, Kevin Sylvan in Atlanta, is voicing. I mean, I went and I pulled all my old favorites. I was like, come on this journey with me. And it's been really great. I didn't realize that meant I would have to write 30 pages of dialogue a week.
What? Yeah. Why didn't you believe that?
I don't know. That just kind of skipped in my head. I was like, yeah, we'll just do a podcast. And yeah, we can do 10 episodes. It's no problem. And then I was like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
That means I got to write it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or you recruit for a writer's room. That could happen too.
I have been pulling in some writer friends of mine or people that thought they weren't writers.
Awesome.
But I know that they are. And I'm like, no, come help me write this.
There you go. Hey, Tina, how you doing? Oh, I'm sorry, Leslie. Cool. Tina, how you doing?
I'm good. It is so good to see you. And I mean, I think the most vivid memory I have of us, Terésa, is when you were still doing stand-up comedy in Old Town.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Old Town Alexandra. I remember that night. I remember you standing like in the back. Your arms were kind of like this. And I was like, I see you. You're like, yes, I see you.
That was awesome. And I love I'm just meeting everyone else, but I haven't seen Verta in so long. We see each other on Facebook. So good to see you. So proud of both of you.
Thank you.
And I would say that's a good segue to how I'm doing. I am really trying to immerse myself in Black love and celebrate our culture because the people are coming after me. And Facebook is not very supportive, if I'm honest. Sorry if they're a sponsor.
Yeah. No, you're good.
But you know the stuff that's been going on with me where anyway, it's about the Stop the Hate campaign. And so that has taken a toll. But my husband and family and girlfriends have been very supportive. And again, I mean, I've been watching a lot of James Baldwin, watching his old speeches, the Malcolm X, just really trying to, again, steep myself in our history, some Nikki Giovanni, that kind of thing. I'm just trying to remind myself that our forebears and ancestors have gone through much worse.
Yeah.
And, and then finding joy. I'm working out, getting fitter, because I jokingly say, if this is the revolution and a white supremacist was chasing after me, I'm caught. If I'm if I am trying to sneak through a fence, I'm stuck. So, I got to get this belly together, and it's working. So trying to find humor in everything, but it has been a blessing. Thank you for including me.
Yeah, of course. You all, if you do not know Dr. Opie's work, And I will bounce back and forth between referring to her as Tina when I'm in my homegirl mode, and then to Dr. Opie. The Dr. Opie that you all should really spend some time researching and getting to know is speaking on our behalf in a way that's literally putting her life in harm's way. She says exactly what she means. And when I say she speaks on our behalf for those of us who prefer equality and rail against hate, she speaks exactly what we perhaps some days are too afraid to say out loud because we want to, protect our jobs or not hurt anybody's feelings. This woman goes on the air and lets everyone know what our list of demands are, and has not made life easy for her nor her family. And so we love you and we appreciate you, and
Thank you.
And just thank you, sis. Hey, Aviva, how you doing, ma'am?
I'm all right. I'm actually feel like I don't know, for what it's worth, settling into some kind of quarantine rhythm. And at the same time, horrified by all the people who are not.
Right.
I'm in Arizona, so we're kind of a mess. The state is kind of a mess here, but I'm doing okay. So it's, unfortunately really hot here, so you can't leave the house at all, which is problematic on a number of levels. But it's been okay. I feel like, I've found a way to make it work and still be able to spend time with my daughter, but also get some of my own work done. And knowing that probably as we get into fall, schools, right now the governor is saying that schools will be open, but I don't know how that could possibly happen. So we'll see. What's happening.
Yeah, schools are starting to pull that trigger now. Like I'm just waiting any day now for Texas A&M and for Prairie View to finally say that we will likely be online this fall. That is not me saying that. So if I have any of my students watching, don't go anywhere and say Professor TDV said. That's not what I said. But what's growing more and more evident is that it seems like that might be a reality. Hey, Verta, how you doing, ma'am?
Hey, y'all. I am really good today. I did yoga yesterday. I have an assistant in my life, and we've worked on making sure that I have all yoga and meditation in my life because it really helps me. And this is a little bit of medicine, because last time when we had this, when I was on the panel, it was really amazing to just be with so many amazing, at that time it was all Black women, and it was medicine for my soul. So I'm really happy to be here. Something that was really challenging for me is this morning I posted a tweet from 2016 on this day. Terrence Crutcher, I believe, was the hashtag that was erected on that day. And it's just so hard to know how every year it's like the same cycle. And so I am balancing between the joy and the rage.
Yeah. And I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
And we have two actors staying with us. We have Leslie Ebony, who is still on, and we have Darryl, who played Cliff during this read tonight and concluded the fan fiction that I've written. We will have a show on Thursday, which will be our final episode, which is the epilogue for the book. And the epilogue was written in the form of a eulogy, the eulogy of Cliff Huxtable. It was written by the Reverend Dr. Carolyn Gordon, who is the former professor of myself and Tina, as you can see her reaction. and Verta, she was a mentor for many, many of us at James Madison University. And I asked her if she would write the eulogy, and she wrote one heck of a eulogy. We rehearsed a little bit yesterday, and she's located in Mississippi now, in the middle of near Greenville, Mississippi. She's in the communications department at Mississippi Valley State University. And we talked a little bit about the topic that we're talking about tonight. I know we've pretty much been on for an hour already. We did the reading. I talked with some of the actors, and now we're finally going to talk about this separation of Cliff and Bill from one another. And in the conversation I had with Carolyn regarding her eulogy, it's shifted a little bit. I wrote the book. Darnell wrote the foreword. Slam the Poet wrote the prologue. Carolyn wrote the eulogy. We all wrote them in 2015. And the world looked a little different then. Barack Obama was still the president. Even though there were hashtags coming left and right, police were killing Black folks left and right, or unarmed people left and right, not just Black folks, just in general. It's just a mess. But it's gotten like world's worst. Worse since then. We have an administration that knows shit from sugar about leadership, and we're enduring a pandemic, and there's so many other moving pieces. And I asked her, how did it look now for her? And so what I want to pose to you all first is, what does this whole Bill Cliff conversation look like to you? Either whether you think back to when all the allegations came out in 2015 in mass, or now as we're dealing with a president who is no different than Bill Cosby in terms of behavior and that sort of thing. I mean, what does it mean to live in a world where everything feels, for lack of better words, fucked up anyway? Where does this belong in all of that?
I think for me, like, the hurt, right? When you think of both situations, the level of hurt, because to discover that, Bill, right, and beloved Bill, and not kind of like taken away. I feel like my childhood was kind of being said, that didn't mean anything. That was like the best show. I remember my parents wouldn't let me watch Good Times, like reruns or anything of it. But of course, the Cosby Show was all of that, this beautiful family, and then to be stripped of that. And I think that is how I feel also with what's going on, is that, I don't live in the U.S. anymore. And there was a time when even before Barack Obama, I used to try to not let people necessarily see my passport when I was traveling, because I felt judged by being American. And talk about feeling judged now, but also being more judgmental. So yeah, it's a hurt that comes with it, because you want to love them, you want to love your country, and then there's this hurt that comes with it.
Yeah. Aviva, what's the impact of the initial impact of separating Cliff from Bill as it relates to the Cosby Show in terms of the television canon? What does it mean to separate those two out?
I mean, I think if we're talking about it as part of a canon, I mean, the Cosby Show still has a sort of historical place, right? That we can't completely excise it from. I mean, this is something, just as a sort of quick example, this is something I think about, right, when I'm teaching. And like, I taught a television class last in the spring, and I'm like, do I teach the Cosby Show? And I decided not to, actually, in part because of this, right? So, but I mention it. I mean, I think it's irresponsible. It would be irresponsible to pretend it didn't exist, right? And so I think, and we talked about it. We talked about why I didn't include it as a show we actually watched in full, and not that we watched whole episodes. I mean, whole seasons, but whole episodes of. So a show that we didn't watch, multiple episodes of and talk over, but I did cite it as an example and think through it. And I think that what's important is that you can't just sort of completely excise these things as if they never existed in history. That's not ultimately helpful, but instead to contextualize why maybe we need to rethink the way we look at some of these shows. And at the same time, and I'm sure we're going to get into this, and this is part of what you're talking about here, right? We can also make some separation, right, between the fiction and our, as viewers, enjoyment of it. I was talking about something completely different on Twitter yesterday, right? It's okay to like problematic things sometimes, right? That we can still enjoy it personally, right? And especially as something that, as maybe if we watched it as children, or when we watched it when it was airing, we had no idea it was going to be problematic, right? You can't feel guilty then 20 years later or more that you enjoyed it and that you have all these memories attached to it. And I'll just say very quickly, one other thing is that we have to think about the institutions that allow this kind of behavior too, right? Rather than, I mean, of course, the individual has choice. You know, Cosby as an individual can make choices and made wrong ones, right? But institutions also enabled that behavior, and that's something that we have to keep in mind. So,
yeah. What say you, Laura? Leslie, Seville Leslie. What's the work that needs to be done for that separation?
I think there needs to be there has to be a realization first that these are two different beings, right? There's the artist who created it, and there's the art.
Yeah.
And absolutely, we can hold the artist accountable for what they do in their life. And they should be held accountable if they do something as he's been accused and sentenced about it. Yes, absolutely. Hold him accountable. But I don't think we can throw the baby out with the bathwater because of the tremendous impact that his art had on the Black community.
Yeah.
Right. We can't just say, okay, can't watch Electric Company anymore. Can't get those VHS tapes out for my little ones and show them to him because it's that person. No, it's still educational. It's still valuable.
Yeah.
We have to start teaching our community how to have context. Right? Yes, absolutely. This person's actions were horrible. That doesn't mean that they never did any good. It doesn't mean that you throw everything out, because if you do that, it's the same with something like Amos and Andy, right? Back in the 50s.
Sure.
That was a TV show that showed a married Black couple. He had a job. He was not only taking care of his wife, but his mother-in-law. I mean, it showed a wonderful Black family. Did it have problems? Absolutely. But the NAACP got it taken off the air permanently. So we had to wait all those years until Cosby to see a nuclear Black family on TV that was acceptable en masse. And I think we lost something.
I kind of live for the Evans family of good times. I mean, but yeah, I do know where you're going though. Yeah.
But it's like, but I mean, acceptable in mass, right?
Sure.
There was not. I mean, I think of Good Times as like that was the Black show. You know what I'm saying? None of my white friends watch Good Times.
Sure.
I'm just saying. But what I'm saying is we missed all of those years of representation, right? So there were so many years that we were just kind of lost.
Yeah.
Like, and because we didn't see ourselves there, we didn't see ourselves.
So here's the thing. Separating Bill and Cliff will be a nearly impossible task because, as I said in one of my, there's been a couple articles that's now come out because of focused on this series. Another one's going to come out, I think, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. I'll get confirmation later. But something in one of the articles I said where Cliff is going to have a hard time moving away because he shares Bill's face. But we have an actor who gave his voice to Cliff Huxtable and made it uniquely his own. And no other actor have received more positive input than Daryl Johnson reading Cliff Huxtable, because it gave everyone a sense of, oh, I can still connect to the Cosby Show or to Cliff Huxtable. I can even go back now and watch the Cosby Show because I saw with my own eyes it's possible to see this fictitious character in fiction context, meaning I know he's not real. And it's crazy that, not crazy, it's understandable. I think I went through some of this myself in the writing process, that a person would go, I'm just so dedicated and committed to this story and to this work that I refuse to see Cliff as anything other than an extension of Bill Cosby. But Darryl, what was that experience like for you, having to take on Cliff's voice, but also battling that other piece that, you know, you would be compared to Bill Cosby, or your performance would be compared to Bill Cosby?
For me, it was really interesting. One of my old friends, I mean, old friends, who's been watching us, told me you finally got to play your idol. And growing up, I had I idolized Bill Cosby, and all fairness, I still idolize the things that Bill Cosby accomplished. Being in politics, I grew up in a realm that we can bifurcate the person from their deeds.
Yeah.
And it's helpful for me, because there are two sides to that coin. And I think there are a lot of things that Bill Cosby did that opened the door for a lot of people of color, for a lot of minorities of all colors, and especially Black men and women, that we just can't overlook. He's human. He made mistakes. He's made some mistakes that I hope I never will make. But he still can't be discounted 100%, because I believe that that he did do some great things for people of color, and I thought I was very honored when you asked me to play this role, because I believe it gave me a chance to give the actor Bill Cosby, the creator Bill Cosby, redemption.
Yeah, not yours to shoulder, but I'm certain. I know I appreciate it. Appreciate your efforts in that respect. You know, the best any of us can do is to kind of proceed as humans in the best we know how. And it's interesting when you say these are things I hope I would never do. But you know, the media has an interesting way of determining what is newsworthy and what is of your character, or what is a part of your story, your narrative, and what people tend to hang on to. And yes, Bill Cosby did a lot of amazing things in his career. And then how do we untether that from Cliff Huxtable? I think the same can also be said about some of the figures that we see, the statues around the country that are being removed or destroyed or what have you. I mean, one could say, well, you know, George Washington was you know, he was a man who did a lot of great things for this country while he owned slaves. So we have had the practice of separating deeds from character for generations in this country. As we just see the release of Hamilton on Disney, you know, there's now this conversation of, as Aviva said, the problematic work, and how do you separate, how do you continue to love a piece of genius work, Cosby Show, Hamilton, and balance it against some of the problematic elements that are a part of that. In the case of Cosby Show, obviously we're talking about Bill Cosby, but with Hamilton, there's been this whole conversation of history. Verta, did you get have you seen Hamilton yet? Have you enjoyed the show on Disney yet?
I didn't watch it on Disney. I actually saw it on Broadway.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Let me just go all the way back to the real deal, Holyfield.
So what I will say, and I think, so the episode that I was on, and trigger warning for anyone, there was sexual assault that was involved, and a lot of this is triggering. And so I'm going to name for me that it is really difficult we're living in, this is a microcosm of a macrocosm, and it's very difficult for me to lead with this person was great versus this person did some really awful things and they also produced some art. And I think the same thing is true when we look at the way that history gets portrayed, or the way that we have that conversation. And so I'm going to say two things. I'll get to the Hamilton piece in a moment, but the one piece with regard to attempting to untether, I think that we can't. I think it's the complexity of being human, and it's the complexity of the world that we currently inhabit that makes it very difficult. For me to actually see Bill Cosby, right? So there's the part of it is actually seeing the person, and you just made reference to that, Terésa. And I'm hoping that we are in this space of time where we actually don't allow people that do heinous things, sexual assault, rape, all of those things, right? Because we got to name the stuff. We can't just say they did terrible things, or we held slaves, or use the teeth of slaves was it the bones of slaves for their teeth? We have to say the things. We have to call the things what they are, because when we realize how brutal they are, then we have to question whether we should move forward as a people that allows for people that do those terrible things to actually be those that we choose to idolize.
Yeah.
So that's something I think that we have to really think about. And I think about it a lot, obviously, as a Black woman in this world, because there are things that I have to unlearn and decolonize in my own mind in order to be able to make those statements. And then with regard to Hamilton, same thing, the production of it, I'm always very into what the set and the design is. And that was one of the most amazing and brilliant things that I had seen in so long. Yeah. And I think that what we get there is, Lin-Manuel Miranda creating a version of history that not a lot of people would say that they had known about. We then have to reconcile the fact that we then place Black bodies in characters that are playing those that held slaves and all of those things. It's extremely complicated and complex. And I think, I'm going to paraphrase Baldwin, it is our right to then, we can love it and we can say that this stuff really sucks about it. And we need to have those conversations. And I think too often people are not willing to do both and. They want to do this or they want to do that. And we really need to move into a space where we can do that. At the same time, acknowledge that I get to make the decision personally if I don't want to watch Cosby. And that's cool. I get to make that decision. Yeah. Just like someone else gets to make the decision that they do want to, right? The thing is that, are we making informed decisions about why we want to? Are we only doing that because we want to protect something, right? And what is the thing that we're choosing to protect or not protect? And who are we choosing to protect and not protect in those decisions that we're making? So Hamilton was brilliant. There were these amazing things about it. And then also there are things that feel problematic. And I'm hoping that they get to reckon with that, right? Lin, he can benefit from white privilege just when he shows up in a space at times. He's so famous now that that's not a thing for him, but there's that to unpack, right? Yeah. And there's that to unpack, knowing that he used a lot of things that are Black cultural things to make his point and his message. He did it brilliantly, but it was rap and it was all these things. He did that brilliantly, but we get to unpack that. Just like any art that I produce, anything I put out into the world, people get to do what they're going to do with it, right? So that's what I'll say about that.
Tina, how does all this land on you? What does this look like in terms of the political landscape of things, and how, as Verta said, Black bodies telling these stories that can feel problematic? And I feel like Hamilton it's fan fiction. It's very similar to what we've done with this, right? It's fan fiction, and I'll talk about how I feel about it, the show as a piece of art in just a moment. But Tina, what are your thoughts?
So the word that has been coming to my mind is facade. When you ask the question about how do we untether Cliff Huxtable from the person who played him. And I'm like Verta, so I'm a victim of sexual assault. And so hearing, I don't even like to say his name. I have to be very honest because it's very traumatizing for me. And I would say, a facade is an outward appearance that's maintained to conceal a less pleasant reality. And the reality of the situation is that Cliff Huxtable was never real. It's beautiful art. And I can say that I think part of the reason it's so traumatizing for me is because I got a part of my identity from watching The Cosby Show. So in psychology, we talk about how there's three human needs, typically three common human needs. So there's the need for belongingness, the need for competence, and the need for autonomy. So you need to feel like you fit into a group. The Cosby Show hit that box for me. You need to feel like you're smart. They did that for me too. And then the thing about autonomy, you need to feel that you have some independence. Well, here is this very agentic, well-accomplished Black family for the first time on television. So all three of those fundamental human needs were checked for me by this show. And I felt better about myself. I mean, I'm very, very much Black, proud of my heritage, proud of my Blackness, always have been. And I felt pride in that show. I mean, I remember the news used to talk about how The Cosby Show was the #1 show on the air. And I was like, that's right, Black people did that. Yeah. And then he did it again with A Different World. And so when it all came crashing down, and I didn't doubt the women. I mean, I was in circles where people did, and I don't want to bring up the gender dynamics and all of that within the Black community, but I never doubted the women, ever. And when more and more women came out, to me, it was pretty obvious. And I want to go to something that Verta said when she said, we have to ask ourselves what we're protecting. And this reminds me also of something that James Baldwin said in his debate against Buckley in 1965. And I wrote it down, not for this, I didn't know it was going to come up, but he was talking about how the white people or supporters of Cliff Huxtable or whoever must be insane to attack the very institution from which he gets his identity. So if we think about that, there are so many people who felt better about themselves, who could connect their identity to this particular situation. And I think when that comes down, there's sort of this innate internal need to try to fight for that facade. But that's always what it was. It was never the truth of Bill Cosby. And the other thing I want to say is that I think about facades, but I also think about the construction of facades. And we can talk about that, well, because we also have the facade of the presidency, the facade of democracy, the facade of what this country actually stands for and what the democratic process is. If you haven't already, there's a PBS special, I think it's called She Could Be Next or something like that. It's about all the women of color who ran for political office. And they talk about voter suppression, and specifically in Georgia. And when you see that, you're like, it is a facade to tell people all the things that we do about one person, one vote. Now, I'm not saying not to vote. I want to make sure to the listeners. My point is, we need to have a deluge of people voting. Yeah. Because people will do tricks. But the construction of the facade, Cosby and 45 could not have done what they did without the assistance, the complicity of conspirators. So to me, there are individual, interpersonal, and institutional level factors that contribute to the facade and the construction of those facades.
Ooh, Dr. Opie is in the house. Ooh. What is it? So, okay. Leslie Ebony, you're there and you're watching us from afar. And what's the conversation in the UK regarding the laundry list? This whole conversation of the Me Too movement here in the States, how does it resonate internationally? Again, being connected historically to the love of the Cosby Show, is there conversation? Are we kind of in a vacuum with the mourning of that separation? And then I know we put all the international questions on your shoulders. Thank you, ma'am. But yeah, how does this all look from where you stand?
So I find it very interesting because I lived in London. I've lived here now for 5 years. I lived in Amsterdam for 9 years. And what's interesting to me is how when U.S. comes up, there's a very quick like, oh, can't believe that U.S. They just can't seem to get it together. And it does allow for people to say like, we're actually pretty good, right? And you all have, U.S. if they could just get themselves together. And it's interesting because the problems are everywhere, right? But there is the US, the way it shows up, the way Trump shows up on TV, it does allow in a lot of ways other countries to be like, whew, at least we're not that bad, right?
Wow.
Which is what I tend to hear. And in some ways, I think that's why I don't live in the States. If I'm like really deep, like if I go deep, there are a lot of reasons why I don't live in the States at the moment. But if I go really deep, I think there is a sense for me that somehow it's a little bit better not being in the States.
Mm.
And also there's a bit of guilt, right? So when things happen, which, I still call it home. When things happen at home, there's a big, like a sense of like how, because in my head I go, I'm so glad I don't live there at the moment, right? When I think about my son, and then I go, how dare I feel? Because my best friend lives there, right? My best friend lives in Virginia, and the kind of things she comes up against, so it's a very interesting dialogue. Even the most conservative of people that I meet here in the UK, when I compare them, they are critical of the administration and the current administration. It's go back to that love-hate kind of thing, right? How do you merge the two? How do you do that? Because it's the same country in which I saw the first Black president. I had that, he was on a big jumbo screen in the middle of a square in Amsterdam, and to have that crying moment and everyone kind of, him being, the center of attention in an Amsterdam square, to, where we are now. It's the duality of it.
Yeah. Another untethering. This contemplating living here versus someplace else, and I go, I don't know if I can be that far away from my mama. That's a hard call to make, but at the same time, you go, but I can see where, if you have young children, or if you want if you want to experience just something different than what we are enduring right now. Yeah. So Leslie, Seville Leslie, the art has to go on. The art heals. Aviva Television heals. Tina, politics serve us. Verta, activism serves us. Darryl, being the sole man left. I don't know where the other fellows are tonight. I think they're still watching, because they're leaving comments and stuff. I think they just were like, my sound ain't working. I don't think I want to go in there.
They're praying for me.
Are they praying for you, brother? These various sectors that impact who we are in the world, especially as Black people in the world. What's the next? Like, if we could look into our crystal ball, what are the things that we should be untethering ourselves to right now that might give us a fighting chance moving forward? I mean, I've felt a shift in me. For instance, I think of things like religion differently. I think of I look at white people differently, and I'm married to a white woman, and I go to my wife, I go, I may need to talk to somebody about this. Like, what's the what are some of the things we need to do to start preparing ourselves looking forward? What's the untethering?
I think one of the first things we need to do is stop giving performative answers to real problems any support. Okay, awesome. You painted the words Black Lives Matter on a street in your town. How much are you giving to your police department? Does your police department have a civilian review board? Awesome, you painted something. Ooh, you took the indigenous woman off the butter. That does not solve one real problem that we have in this country.
There you go.
Period.
Yeah.
You don't get a cookie for doing something you should have been doing anyway. You just don't. So, I had to have a very intense conversation with a theater in Charlottesville, and I was like, everything you just did was really performative, and I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it. The time for you to go, oh, you matter, and put a banner up and have that be it, and you walk away is over.
Yeah.
It's just over.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to do something substantial, then shut up and get out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I don't really care about the statues and the monuments and different things. Leave them up. I don't care. Leave them up. Vote people into office or burn this whole system down somehow. These are the things that need to happen.
But Terésa,
yeah, go ahead, Tina.
Take the statues down too. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sorry, I'm like, we can say that it's performative, but there were things like, we were just talking about how we didn't have representation on television. And so the Cosby Show was so important. The symbols do matter. Now, what we hope is that the only change is not merely taking down symbols, but I think it would be great for Black children and white children, Latino children and Indigenous children and Middle Eastern children to grow up in a world where they're not looking at statues that pay homage to to enslavers. I think that would be wonderful. Now, what I also hope is that you have workplaces and residential areas and school systems and healthcare where there are not gender inequities and racial inequities and inequities for people who are LGBTQ and immigrant inequities. So I think we can do both and. I want the statues to come down. But if the only thing you're doing is tearing these statues down and writing Black Lives Matter, we have an issue.
There you go. That's definitely the better way to align it. I think every time I hear a new news report of some statue that's come down, I'm like, that you're burning a whole lot of energy in a place where I don't know if it's going to create change in any real way. But yes, absolutely. If that, I think what you bring up makes absolute sense.
Being in and near one of the cities that we haven't forcibly taken it down, but we will be taking full advantage of the governor's new law to take ours down. And I think because of where these statues are, particularly in Charlottesville, and they were placed in similar places around the country, they're normally placed in front of a courthouse. So it's marking space as white. And two, it's telling all the Black people coming into the courthouse that you're not going to get justice here. So there are other things in play about the statues that so taking them down is a little more than performative.
Sure.
But there definitely has to be more than just that.
Yeah.
Can I just? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go. Oh, just really quickly. I mean, if we're just going back to Cosby too, and sort of institutions in film and TV, because I think I really agree, like the performative isn't enough. And that also goes for the performative way in which I think a lot of the film and television industry, not all, but a lot of the film and television industry is trying to sort of up its diversity and inclusion mandates in ways that are not happening across the board, right? But I think that even beyond that sort of deeper, the thing that really needs to change is that when someone comes forward, because someone at some point during the whole Cosby mess told someone what was going on, right? Like there are multiple sort of histories off the top of my head at this particular moment. I don't remember all the specifics, but multiple sort of versions of this story, right? That when someone comes forward, that they're believed, right? Initially from the get-go, so that then it doesn't take 40 years or 20 years or however for this to come out later, right? It doesn't have to be something that is then part of the history. It can just be part of the present, and then we can sort of move forward from there. Because I think the big problem, not many big problems, but one of the problems is this idea that you can get away with doing these things if you also make great art. And we need to make it so that if you do these things, you can't even get to the point of making any art at all, right? Yeah. So anyway.
She said, and that's it. I'm done. And I just put that on the table.
Terésa, may I? When we talk about taking statues down, and I don't know that I'm against it. I don't know that I'm not necessarily for it either. What I would be for is, while you're tearing that down, what are we replacing it with? What is the conversation for what we want? Where is the national dialogue that says we won't settle for this, but we do want this? And I don't see where we're setting up a foundation for longevity. That statue doesn't mean anything. It's the ideas that surround that statue.
So it goes back to the whole idea of, I'm sorry, who was that? Is that Verta?
Yeah, that's me.
Go ahead. Go, please.
So there's just three things that came up for me. One, what Dr. Opie said about facades, and there's an illusion and symbols. Like there's a theme to that. I mean, America in and of itself, democracy, it's a symbol, right? It's a symbol for things. And so it's really difficult for people to untether themselves from this facade that has been created that is America. Part of taking down statues is that we are naming symbols that we no longer want to have a facade around. Yeah. And I think in connection with that getting to this place of removing statues did not just happen overnight, nor did it just happen in the 3 months that we've been in a global pandemic known as COVID-19. There are people and organizers that have been working on the ground for decades, trying to get statues and names pulled off of buildings, that have been working for a long time to have defund the police become something that's common vernacular. So I just think that we actually have to start to think about, where are we looking and where are we refusing to look for where the messages are around what are the things that are actually, what are the next steps? What are the places that we want to go? Because in the work that I do, there are lots of Black women, Black femmes, just that are leading and have been leading this cause, but people don't necessarily want to listen to them. And I just have to say it. And I think a lot about what Tina's going through. Like, if a Black man were saying some of the things that you were saying, or were doing what you were doing, I don't know that the vitriol that is coming for you would be coming in that way. I literally had to go on Facebook. There's a group that I love called White Nonsense Roundup, where white people will come in when somebody's on your post, the white person, like talking about Black on Black crime and whatnot. Love it. I have to tag them, consistently being like, can y'all come get this person right here? Because we have to also acknowledge that there are people, there are organizations, there are collectives that have been working to say this is the future that we want. And the other thing that I talked to when we were at the rehearsal is some of the future we don't even know, because we've never lived in an anti-racist world. So it is not like we can just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here we are, here we have it. And we need people working on all levels to do this. This is where it is both and. It is pull down a statue, it is enact legislation, and it is burn it down. Like all those things have to happen. Like they just do. And we cannot act like they don't, right? And when people think about all of the revolutions that have happened in the history of revolutions, and if we just take the small little slice that is the United States, it didn't happen without, I mean, if the Haitian Revolution did not happen, Toussaint Louverture didn't do what he did, people wouldn't have been over here trying to make sure that the slaves here and put that Bacon Rebellion under wraps, if not for violence, if not for uprising, as well as the organizers, because people have to organize to make that happen. So I just needed to say those things, because I'm like I'm here for all of it. What I'm not here for is vilifying without knowing. And I'm not saying that anyone right here is doing that, but I think that there's some things that are happening where we are vilifying certain people for choosing the actions that they're choosing without really understanding, I think, that context. And I've been working a lot to name like the privileges that I enter a space with, right? And like I have an education, I have a master's degree, I have all these things. I got the fancy words. And so there's things that are far in my past of living with not a lot of means or living with not a lot of things, and I have to understand what it means to live in an oppressive country under an oppressive regime that is putting up a facade and making me think that my vote counts, making me think that they're not suppressing people's votes, making me think all of these things. And so I'm gonna stop there.
I want to take an opportunity to go around the table and as walking orders, as what you feel like will assist us with the various untetherings we need to participate in that will make us individually whole in these times. What are some of the things we need to, do you see, or even for yourself? For me, one of my untethering needs to be procrastination. I need to, like, even with things like knowing who's running for local offices, local campaigns here, because voting local is just as important as voting national. In fact, some cases more so, because these are the people you're encountering on a day-to-day basis, more so than some of the people on the national level. Not waiting until the last minute to really know all the issues. I have some personal ideals that I'm looking forward to shedding to make my world a little bit brighter and a little less heavy. What are some of the things, one or two things you feel like could help us collectively or you as an individual moving forward as an untethering?
Terésa, can I say something?
Yeah, go anybody.
Okay.
Yep.
So this may sound, I hope it comes out the way that I mean it, which is where there have been moments in my life where I have completely untethered from my identity, if that makes sense. I would say from the constraints that this oppressive society puts on components of my identity. Mm-hmm. So when I'm on the ferry heading into Martha's Vineyard, I'm not thinking about the fact that I'm concerned that my 17-year-old Black son might be murdered. I'm not even thinking about the fact that these people might be looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm actually attuned to like my spirit, who I feel God made me to be on the inside of this Black body with this brilliant mind. I'm actually attuned to my spirit man or spirit woman. And that is an untethering, because the heaviness that you just mentioned, Terésa, is something that I think if you have a conscience, if you are even thinking about what is going on in this world, not just for you, but for other groups of people, I think it can become very heavy. But for me to be able to actually disconnect from myself in a way, if that makes sense, and I don't mean to be detached, I mean to perhaps be connected with the deepest essence of myself, is an untethering that I try to practice on a daily basis.
Yeah. Leslie, either one? Well,
So I was going to say my untethering has a lot to do with just calling a thing, and I think in my life, Thanksgiving, that one resonates for me some way in a higher well, and also with the 4th of July, that I have not telling the full story, and also just kind of like saying, try knowing the story, but just kind of trying to pivot all the time on when things happen. And I think it's even when my husband often gets called out in lines at the airport, and I'm like, oh, it's probably just a glitch. It's not a glitch. So just untethering myself from the need to ignore, right? Just calling a thing is that's where I need to get to.
yeah.
I think what I have been working on personally is untethering myself from having to be the peacemaker, and being okay with expressing anger about something that is enraging, and really having to work to say to whoever is in front of me spewing some nonsense that, you know what, I don't care if this makes you uncomfortable. What you said has triggered me or devalued me or dehumanized me, and I'm not going to stand for it, and you do not get to stand there and be comfortable doing that. And that is a long process of unlearning right there.
Yeah. Aviva, what untethering do we need to do?
I was muted. Sorry. I think this is for me personally, and I'm sure for other people as well, but I won't speak for everyone. I think I've been trying to, and this maybe is sort of related to Leslie's comment, but to both listen more and speak more. So, but to know when to do both of those things. So I think sometimes I have, I'm an information gatherer, right? So I want to always know like all the things there are to know about a topic before before I start talking on it. And sometimes that's not possible. And sometimes it is, right? To at least have a sense of the sort of playing field before you go in. And I think sometimes especially with social media, people sort of go in before they've even read anything, right? They see the article headline and immediately respond. And maybe that's a little too quick, right? And you need to maybe spend a little bit more time on something. But sometimes I have a tendency to wait too long, right? So I'm like, I have to read all 40 articles that have been published about this one thing before I can speak. And by then the conversation has moved on. And so I think, this is sort of my sort of personal thing I'm trying to do is to be better about finding that balance, right, between listening and speaking. So knowing sort of when my voice might hold value in the conversation as it's happening, right? Not just, a week later after the whole conversation has played out. So.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Definitely. Verta.
So for me in this very moment, one is rest. As part of my revolution and part of the revolution for Black people. And I'm going to speak very specifically about Black people in this country because we have worked and have been worked and have been fed the lie that we don't work hard enough. That's why we don't have and all of that. And so I have had to really work to rest. And that is on all levels, my mind, my spirit, and my body. Because capitalism is one of the things that also just makes us think we have to keep going. And it's mine too. I have like 17,000 jobs. You read my bio. You was like, So I'm literally needing to rest because we deserve to. And then the second part for me in this moment is remembering that Black joy reigns supreme. We can have all the emotions, and that too often right now, the consumption of our pain and our suffering and our distress is what people are using as a tool to say that this is how you learn to be anti-racist, and that is quite racist. Yeah. And I already untethered from watching and witnessing that. But what I want people to know is that, like, you gotta literally, I have a list. I'm gonna post it one day because I got all these lists of like the beautiful Black love stories that I found. And some of them, they just exist. They're just existing. They just live it. Like there's this one cute one that I found recently called Olympia. Oh my gosh, gave me all the life, because you know what? These people, it wasn't about all this other stuff. It was like, we get to live, we get to be. Yeah. We get to be. And so we get to do that while we struggle through and while we forge ahead in this revolution. Like we get to do that. We get to do that.
I don't know what just happened. You said rest, and my, like the dam just broke. Like,
yeah, because we get to. It is like literally our natural born right. And there's some of like a letting go and a release, because resting doesn't mean that I don't work too. It just means that I also rest.
Yeah. Darryl, so I can get my life together. Darryl.
The thing that I think we need to untether collectively from all the years, decades that I've been a lobbyist, that I've been the executive director of the Legislative Black Caucus, that I've been a Congressional Black Caucus staffer, that I've been a congressional staffer. The one thing that I always see, and I am starting to see changes, and I am so happy that I see this, is that we will get out and we will march and we will get Barack Obama elected president. We will take him to the White House, and then we'll go home. And we won't stay there to fight for him and protect him and make our voice heard. I think that we need to be engaged in the process, and we need to stay engaged in the process. We cannot detach ourselves.
Yeah. So go beyond the vote. You have to vote, yes, but we have to be willing participants in the process and in the structure for change. We're going to wrap things up because we could talk all night long. I suspect if we had some wine and sit and chat, we could.
Terésa?
Yeah.
Terésa? May I shamelessly plug?
That's what I'm getting to next. So before we go, there are a couple things I want to plug. Before we do that, though, I would like, who is my one person? It's Tina. Tina, who's your favorite Huxtable? And if different, who are you most like?
I liked Denise, but I'm most like Clair Huxtable in terms of, I was like that at 10. So that was really annoying, telling everybody, including adults, what to do and how to act. That's been happening for a long time. And so that would be my answer to that.
Okay. She's like very short and sweet and to the point. It is.
I know, because I know that Darryl wants to plug his thing. Like, I can talk. You know I can talk, but I'm trying to
be. Dr. Tina, I would love for us to collaborate and have you as a speaker as well. I mean, you knock my socks off. You are just dynamite.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm going to tell you, Terésa, I could get emotional too. This has been, as Verta said, medicine for my soul, for real. It is just wonderful to talk with people who we may have different perspectives on things, but we respect each other. We know how to dig deep. You can feel the love on the call. So I really want to thank you for including me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. We're going to say proper goodbyes in just a second. Laura, if you can bring up the flyer that I put into the graphics deck. This is the event that Darryl will be plugging in like 1.2 seconds here. It is the Mach 3 Center, which is at Prairie View A&M University, Mach 3 Masterclass Series on Thursday, July 16th. We will be hosting the Reverend Al Sharpton. Darryl, I'll tell you what, why don't you, since this is, I'm trying to see if we can get it to, so it looks a little bit cleaner, but Darryl, why don't you tell us what this event is, and we'll turn it over to you.
Dr. Fred Bonner, our endowed chair, who is also the executive director of the Mach 3 Center. For those that don't know about the Mach 3 Center, we deal with Black male initiatives, Black male achievement. There is a story that the world will tell you about pipeline to prison. Our story is about pipeline to success, pipeline to CEO, pipeline to achievement. And nobody is capable of doing that better than Black men. And I'm not leaving Black women out, but as we all can agree, right now, if we were animals, we would be in a fence because we're endangered species. The masterclass series is going to be presented by Reverend Al Sharpton. Dr. Jamal Watson is going to be the moderator. Jamal is the editor of Diverse Issues in Higher Education. The panel is going to be Dr. Fred Bonner, Dr. Pamela Obeeman, who is also the dean of the School of Engineering at Prairie View A&M University, one of, I think, only maybe two Black female deans in the United States. I may have my numbers wrong, but I don't think so. Then you have Dr. Cynthia Spence, Dr. Camille McHale, and Dr. Brian Marks. Camille is from the U.S. Virgin Islands, University of the Virgin Islands. Cynthia, of course, is from Spelman, and Brian is a Morehouse man. It is on July the 16th from 6 to 7:30 Central Standard Time. It's going to be controversial. It's going to be my brother and my friend, Reverend Al Sharpton.
Excellent. We hope that you all will take part in that series in general, but certainly on the 16th, experience this phenomenal opportunity to talk with the Reverend Al Sharpton. I also want to say, if you get a chance, I want you to go to the New Yorker, to their website, the newyorker.com, and read Rita Dove's Pedestrian Crossing, Charlottesville. She has a brand new poem that was released or published on the New Yorker magazine and on their online platform June 29th. Just a couple weeks ago. And she is a great mentor and friend from back home in Charlottesville. She also happens to be the beloved mom of one of our panelists here tonight. I won't say who, Aviva. But that poem, I've read it ad nauseum, quite frankly, because it's just rich. It's home, and in a way that's very familiar, and in a way that seems timely given everything that's going on now. And Rita Dove has a reading of it in her own voice on the New Yorker website as well. And I just wanted to add that, since we're sharing space with Aviva. Aviva holds court all her own. It's not like, oh, we have to, but yeah. How's your mom doing, and how did the New Yorker piece? We're going to finish with some joy tonight. How's your mom doing, and how did the New Yorker piece come to be, as far as you know?
I don't know, actually.
Oh,
I haven't asked her. I mean, I haven't asked her exactly how it came to be, but she's doing well. So, I mean, as a writer, I think she's handling quarantine. She and my father just are like, we do this anyway all the time. We just stay at home and sit in our rooms and write. So, you know, she's doing all right. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any backstory or insight into the poem. So.
I read the piece and I was like, yep, this feels like Charlottesville. If you read it, those of you who haven't read it yet, if you read it and, you know, look how prickly sometimes, prickly racism and certainly privilege and the oblivion of other people's presence in the world can be, you will definitely enjoy this piece or find some connection to it. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. Another woman who is phenomenal and inspirational and has her fingerprints on the success of my life is the Reverend Dr. Carolyn Gordon, who will be joining us on Thursday. Thursday, we will be finishing the series with the epilogue of the book, and it is in the form of the eulogy of Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable, written and delivered by the Reverend Dr. Carolyn Gordon. Carolyn was my first communication professor at James Madison University and really taught me how to use my voice. But the thing that I got most from Carolyn is trusting the power and the authenticity and the absolute validity of your own voice. And I just want to say thank you all. I hope you join us on Thursday. I hope all of you get some rest. Leslie in London, Leslie, go to bed. Go to bed. And all of you, thank you again for joining us tonight. Much love to you all. Continue to wear your mask. Join us for our final show on Thursday. All right, much love. Bye, y'all.
Thank you, Terésa.
No, pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Love you. Bye.